Good morning. Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge. And today is Saturday, and it is August 27th, 2022. And we have joining me today, your reputation precedes you, sir. Luke Lirot, preeminent lawyer. Lawyer, you handle cases related to First Amendment issues, and among other areas of law. And I wanted to bring you on because many of us here, especially here locally in the Tampa Bay area, we are we are following the headlines. Our governor Desantis, he suspended a local prosecutor for the 13th Circuit, Andrew Warren, and that they're litigating right now. Um, Andrew Warren has filed a federal lawsuit against Governor DeSantis after suspending him on August 4th for neglect of duty and incompetence. And so Luke Lirot is going to be answering questions that I'm going to pose. We're going to have a conversation about this and the pending federal lawsuit. But before we do that, I would like to just take a couple of minutes and bring into the screen with us the much beloved, extraordinary, trailblazing powerhouse, Candy Lowe. Good morning. She has organized yet again the Black Business Tour that's going to go down this coming month, September 24th, 2022. And just tell us a little bit about that, Candy.
Thank you so much, Haiti, for having me.
You broke out. You froze there for a moment. I'm gonna wait here. So you froze a little bit, Candy. Candy. Let me tell her to just. Okay, there you go. Are we good now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much for having me on this morning, Haiti. You are doing an amazing job getting so many stories out and so much hot tea.
You froze again.
The awareness to our community. The Black Business Bus Tour is September 24th, where we will be going out supporting African American businesses on our motor coach buses on September 24th. All are invited to the Black Business Bus Tour, which was started in 2006 in our community. And we look forward to it. Is September Bus Tour Haiti is the biggest bus tour of the year. And we are absolutely excited about pushing forward. You know, we've been in a pandemic that stopped us for a minute of sharing our African American businesses, but we are up and running. And September 24th is a Black Business Bus Tour. If anyone need any information, they can give me a call at 813-394-6363. And also Tea and Conversation is today as well, which we have had for 18 years in our community. Thank you so much, Haiti, for having me on.
Look, go ahead and let the community know where Al's finger licking good soul food is. I'm sorry, it's not in front of me, but the food is good. I've been there several times, and it is good, and it's an amazing community event that you regularly hold to get the community together, to get those who are in office, those who want to be in office, to engage the community, which is very important. So can you give us the address? And it starts right now. It's starting, and it goes on till noon. So where can anyone go if they'd like to head out there now?
Tea and Conversation every second and fourth Saturday at Al's Finger Licking Good Soul Food, and that's 2302 East 7th Avenue in Ybor City. And today, Haiti, we have candidates that won and the candidates that did not win are coming back to Tea and Conversation, and we're lifting them up high, the ones that won and the ones that lost, that we hope that they will get in the race and run again. But it's today until noon. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Candy. And again, one more time, Black Business Tour. It's on the screen. September 24th, 2022, Rebirth Event Park. Staging starts at 8 a.m. Buses departing at 9 a.m. 1924 East Comanche Avenue, Tampa. The seats are $15. And again, you can call if you want to learn more about it or you want to be about it. 813-394-6363. Okay, and so we are back to what happened here? Luke. Okay, there we go. So and we also have now Life Malcolm. Thank you also for joining. He's going to join in the discussion. Let's just go ahead, start off. It's 10:05, and Luke, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
I am so excited that you are here. So let's start this discussion. A federal suit is pending. I heard yesterday that there's going to be a pretty quick the hearing has been set. I think it's September 20th or the 21st. The federal judge is going to hear the lawsuit. For those of you who don't have the opinion, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the comment section. But tell us about that. What do you think? What are your thoughts? First Amendment violation.
No question about it. I think it's important to put it in perspective. I know that Andrew Warren, the elected state attorney for Hillsborough County, not just once but twice, has been vocal. And I think that's part of a government official's job, is to be vocal so that the people know what their positions are and they're allowed to express those opinions and their positions publicly. They have their First Amendment rights too. And there's been a lot of friction between State Attorney Warren and Governor DeSantis for many years. I mean, it goes back quite a ways. It goes back to the issues involving COVID, when they arrested the pastor in Hillsborough County for openly violating COVID restrictions. The governor spoke out against that. Mr. Warren basically said that it's my job to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, so I'm going to try to enforce those laws. And then other bills like House Bill 1, the anti-rioting bill, that I think was just an incredible overreach after a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests, which, again, protected by the First Amendment. Andrew Warren came out and said that, unless there's some other violation of the law, I'm not going to prosecute people who simply engage in lawful protests. I mean, that's patriotic. That's one of the fundamental acts protected by the First Amendment. And then, the governor and the legislature adopt House Bill 1, the Anti-Rioting Act, which criminalizes things significantly more within the province of the First Amendment than rioting. In fact, it was interesting that on June 25th, it was July 25th, federal Judge Walker invalidated that. They issued an injunction against that and said this legislation is far overbroad. It does violate the First Amendment. It can't be enforced. So that was just a few days before the press conference that DeSantis had removing Mr. Warren from office. Now, interestingly enough, in that press conference, he had sheriffs from all over the state, one from Hillsborough County, but all of the other near counties joined him in that. He issued a press release the night before saying, hey, tomorrow there's going to be a major announcement. And I think those kinds of decisions to make this so publicly known was clearly political.
And you know what, Luke? There was a tone in there of, it's almost like they're laughing. It's like they're mocking him because they said, oh, wait till we have a major announcement. Tomorrow the liberals are going to have an incredible meltdown.
Right. And I mean, when you take that position, that's just, from my perspective, it's not professional. It just seems to bring down the entire dispute to something that's ugly and political. Now, DeSantis is intelligent. I've litigated against him many times on many different issues. He's a graduate of Harvard Law School. He graduated in 2005. He's a smart guy. I have to assume that while he attended Harvard Law School, they had some basic constitutional classes that taught the general dimensions of the First Amendment. But in office, I see this repeated example of complete ignorance of the First Amendment. And I think that what really troubles me is I know he's smarter than that. And I know that a lot of the decisions that he's making are not based on his knowledge of the law or the oath that he took to protect and defend the citizens of the state of Florida from any encroachment on the state or federal constitution. I have to believe that all of this is done for political favor. And that's unfortunate, because when you know somebody is intelligent enough to follow the Constitution, yet they decide to ignore it for some kind of ambition they may have for higher office, I find that to be a grave disappointment. Now, what really troubled me is that there have been prior instances, and I know you and I have talked about this, when the state attorney in Orange County, Miss Ayala, decided that she did not want to prosecute death penalty cases and rely on other statutory punishments allowed by the Florida statutes that were not as final and as gut-wrenching as the death penalty. Governor Scott didn't remove her from office, but transferred death penalty cases to other state attorneys. And they filed at what's called a quo warranto there. And the Florida Supreme Court said, no, the governor can do that. If they decide that they want to allow other state attorneys to exercise their discretion, they can do that. But that was a clear representation by that state attorney in dealing with specific cases that existed. People in Orange County had been charged with crimes punishable by the death penalty. In contrast, what DeSantis did is he focused on some different things that State Attorney Warren had commented on, not the least of which was the joint statement from elected prosecutors dated June 24th, 2022, that came out after the reversal of Roe versus Wade. It didn't speak about any specific case. It definitely spoke to the overarching issues regarding medical decisions and the fact that in most of the legislation, and again, you've got state attorneys, 140, I believe, approximately, from all over the country, dealing with all kinds of different laws. Some states' restrictions are dramatically different than other states. So this was a statement of position. This was not some kind of blanket comment. We're not going to prosecute. We're not going to deal with this case. It was simply a political statement that said that we find that most of the enforcement of these anti-abortion laws are themselves threats to the public health, safety, and welfare, particularly where there's no dispensation for rape, incest, anything of that nature, and that itself is something that would be a violation of the doctrine to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. So Andrew Warren signed that. He had taken other positions that, and I know that, Haiti, you're familiar with the efforts on the part of the Tampa Police Department back when they would go and they would use these purported bike riding violations as a predicate to engage in much more invasive police activity. Andrew Warren said, I'm not going to do the bike issues as far as prosecution. I'm probably not going to prosecute any of these really, really mild public welfare crimes like disorderly conduct or, people running around with them. I'm not going to take somebody to jail because they have an expired driver's license. So when DeSantis does this press conference, he brings up the letter statement, which is a statement that Andrew Warren made entirely in his right as an elected official to espouse his beliefs, his opinions, his free speech rights, to let the world know how he felt about the reversal of Roe versus Wade. And then these other two incredibly, I'd say, obscure positions on various expenditures of the public resources in prosecuting crimes that, quite honestly, we should not be spending public money on. Taxpayers should not be footing the bill for those kinds of things, particularly in a highly urbanized jurisdiction like Hillsborough County, where there's more than enough work to do in prosecuting serious, violent, very, very.
Right.
Go ahead.
So just to get back, and I did link the Aramis Ayala opinion, and just to distinguish, because some people that have been commenting on this case, they said that when pointing to the discretion or the authority under the Florida Constitution to do these things, to suspend. Ron DeSantis just suspended this week 4 school board members out in Broward County. He is suspended from office happy since his tenure in office. He's been suspending people. I would say more so than previous governors. So they're commenting and they're saying that he has the ability to do it because Andrew, like Aramis, said, I'm not going to prosecute abortions, the newly passed law with the 15-week abortion. But it is different because if you read the opinion and the public, I went ahead and I linked the opinion and also the federal lawsuit that Warren just filed. It's there, it's linked, so go ahead and read at your leisure. But they're two different things. Aramis, the Supreme Court of Florida said Rick Scott at the time did have the authority to reassign. He didn't suspend her, and good on him that he didn't do it. Because another issue of this is the distrust and that the people are going to have in their ability and right to elect the persons that they wish to govern. And so there are two different cases, though. Aramis Ayala, according to the Florida Supreme Court, their opinion, they said that she did in fact have a blanket, I'm not going to pursue death on cases. Look, I have even been guilty of recently but I've changed I think I've changed my opinion. I have said, I've been guilty of saying maybe for as a practical matter, maybe Andrew shouldn't have signed that letter because it got him in this situation where he has been suspended from doing what the voters elected him to do, and the good things that he has brought into that jurisdiction, like the wrongful conviction unit. The day that he was suspended, he's celebrating. He's celebrating having charged two men, which they're saying are the guilty persons, after having exonerated the gentleman that served 37 years in prison under Mark Ober's administration.
Right.
And you know, it's disappointing. Mark Ober hasn't even given this man that served so many years in prison, 37, an apology. But here's the headline: newly discovered DNA clears Tampa man who served 37 years for murder. That is something that Andrew Warren implemented in his office as he promised. And not only did he implement it, look what it led to. Somebody having said, so I have said maybe he shouldn't have signed that. Maybe he shouldn't have signed that letter.
But here's the point you're making. In the lawsuit that was filed in federal court, the allegations include that this could have a chilling effect across the board on any elected official that wants to espouse any viewpoint on any issue of controversy. And when you read the letter, all it does is articulate the concerns with these blanket prohibitions against abortion and the detrimental impact that can have. There's no specific legislation. And as I said, this is every different state. Every law is different. All this is a statement of belief. It's not a statement that we will not prosecute this legislative act. All it says is that we feel a feeling, a belief, a free speech right. We feel this is wrong and that these are private medical decisions that should be made by the individuals directly affected by having to deal with the issue of pregnancy. That's all it says. It doesn't say we're not going to enforce anything. It just says these are all of the adverse impacts there will be the product of this. And when you say he shouldn't have signed it, then you would be, my first witness to say this is a chilling effect on any public official that would take a position on any issue that's controversial.
But you know what though? I think that they did say that they were going to use their discretion to not prosecute. That's what the letter said. I'm pulling it up.
And it said they're against the prosecution. But my view of this letter is that, first of all, if you're going to take action of the magnitude that the governor did, there needs to be some tangible evidence. There needs to be a case. There needs to be a person that they think engaged in conduct that violated a law that is then presented to the state attorney, and then the decision's made to prosecute. We don't have any factual basis for the actions taken by the governor other than the bicycle stops and not taking people to jail for disorderly conduct. That doesn't equal incompetence. And I think if anybody wants to take the time to look at the press conference with all of these different law enforcement officials and just this really just robust political escapade. Governor DeSantis is talking about decisions made in California about not prosecuting people that commit shoplifting at Walgreens, and he's all over the road with all that. What does any of that have to do with Andrew Warren? Nothing.
Okay, so
Right.
this is what what I previously I said. You know, after reading the letter a couple of times, the one it pertains to the abortion law. As such, we decline to use our office's resources to criminalize reproductive health decisions and commit to exercise our well settled discretion and refrain from prosecuting those who seek, provide, or support abortions. That seems to me to be saying we're not going to prosecute abortion cases. I don't. Some people are going to disagree, I suppose, and say, you know, that doesn't sound like a value statement. That sounds like I'm not going to prosecute these cases, and that's what the governor used to suspend them.
Yes, but Haiti, I want to say, I think Luke made a very important distinction just now. There have not been any cases in front of Warren where he has declined to prosecute. So the abortion law had just taken effect. There have been no cases. Also, with the trans healthcare, that law had not even been signed in yet. So Andrew Warren is not accused of having declined any prosecutions of cases actually in front of him. He did stop prosecuting some of the biking while black cases, but those cases are just a complete blatant infringement on constitutional rights for people. The majority of those cases that I have seen when I was a public defender were teenagers riding on bikes about dusk without a light on the bike, and cops would come up and approach them, and supposedly a consensual encounter, and the kids would try and leave, and the cops would arrest them for resisting arrest when all that they were accused of was a traffic infraction of not having a light. That's not an arrestable offense. So what Warren did was he said he's not going to waste our taxpayer resources on fighting for these unconstitutional arrests. So that was what he did. He also stopped the unconstitutional homeless arrests. If the public's not aware of this, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and TPD both like to do homeless roundups where they go around at like 4 a.m. and wake up homeless people and arrest them all for loitering, for sleeping on public property, things like that. And the reason they do this is because it pumps up their numbers. They know that these homeless people are going to get into jail, first appearance in the morning, plead guilty for time served and get released, and the cops could arrest them again because they're easy targets and they don't have the money or the means to fight the cases. And they're just notches on the sheriff's department and the TPD's belts. They could say, look at how many arrests we did last year. We need more funding. But when you look at it, so many of these arrests are unconstitutional.
Again, listen, this is why it's a novel issue for real. The fact that he hasn't yet been presented or wasn't presented with an abortion case. So it's purely like he's been saying this. I was suspended because of what I said, not because of what I did. So what do you think about what the outcome is going to be, Luke? Based on your reading of the federal complaint. And I would urge the public to read the letters that he signed, even though it appears upon first glance to me that initially when I had the analysis of, you know, maybe he shouldn't have signed that, and then this all wouldn't have turned into what it has. But the more that you read the whole letter, it does read like he is going to use his discretion. It doesn't sound like a blanket statement. He's hanging his hat on. Look, we have a right to look at our resources and to dedicate them to go after the most serious crimes in our jurisdiction instead of prosecuting women. How does that promote prosecuting a woman that's had an abortion past the 15-week, how does that promote safety?
Well, it doesn't. And I think one of the things that needs to be mentioned is that there was a challenge to this very law. The circuit
Right.
court judge in Leon County found it to be unconstitutional under Florida's right to privacy, Article 1, Section 23, which gives us in Florida greater protection from the abuse of the government than the federal Constitution. And I think that what happened was, as with most cases, the circuit court made its decision, fully supporting Andrew's position, his belief, and then when it went up on appeal, a stay was issued, so the law is back in effect. But the only actual decision evaluating the merits of this law under Florida jurisprudence has found it to be invalid.
Right. And so, and not only that, look, when you're looking at, he makes a point in the letter that he signed that, again, if you read it, it does sound like he's not giving out a blanket policy that I'm not going to do it. If the public takes the time to read it, that it reads as they are going to use their discretion in prosecuting the appropriate cases. The current law, the 15-week ban, it doesn't give an exception for women that are raped,
Nothing.
incest, that experience incest, or human
Right.
trafficking.
Right.
Okay.
So let's.
That's
what
a
about
problem
this?
for me. That's a
What
problem.
about this hypothetical? The woman goes in for an abortion 15 weeks plus 3 days.
Right.
The pregnancy was the result of a rape, and the continued carrying of this embryo is a direct threat to the health of the mother. And she decides and finds a doctor that it does what he needs to do to end this pregnancy to save her life. And then those facts are presented to the state attorney. And he doesn't have the discretion to say, I don't think that prosecuting this abortion under these facts is something that is justified under the general aspect of seeking justice for misconduct. I just think that there's too many aspects of this law that have no exceptions for any of these other tragic situations. The health of the mother, rape, incest. How do you even adopt a law that doesn't make those accommodations? And the fact is that if you don't, then who is the one that needs to make that decision so that fairness and the right to make medical decisions for medical necessity lies with the person who's actually going to suffer from whatever happens? If the state attorney decides that it's time not to prosecute that, does he then have the fear that he's going to get pulled out of his office? And the whole context, and let's just get into this real basically. Mr. Warren is sitting in his office and they come in with armed guards and yank him from behind his desk. There's no due process in that. There's nothing. He was yanked out without any notice, no opportunity to be heard. I find that to be as disturbing as any aspect of this entire controversy. If the governor didn't like what he did, it should have been given some level of fairness. But to just go in and behind his back the day after you put out some tease press announcement, outrageous.
Okay. So there's a footnote in the letter as it pertains to the abortion. It says we use abortion to refer to a personal choice made by a pregnant person to terminate a pregnancy. We will continue to consider the prosecution of individuals who violate the autonomy of a pregnant person by carrying out a forced abortion or who perform an abortion negligently or with the intent to cause harm to the pregnant person. So listen, there's various, they jointly, the prosecutors who signed this letter, the signatories, they did articulate various instances where they're going or the basis for their discretion of I'm not going to prosecute this. It doesn't sound like a blanket. We're not prosecuting any.
Not.
So,
Yeah.
okay, Life. Hey, welcome. Good morning, Life. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And I have Josh Montero, who's running for Hillsborough Public Defender in 2024. I'm going to bring him on. He's at TGIN Conversation to weigh in.
Yeah, I'm headed there soon myself.
Life, go ahead. Go
I
ahead. I
just
want
wanted
you to
to
speak
say-
to. Yeah, go.
I just wanted to kind of jump in after Attorney Lirot's exclamations about or after the hypothetical proposed, this woman in a situation she didn't choose to be in, and facing some terrible set of consequences because of that situation. In my view, and I can only speak as an African because I'm an African, and what the issue for me, the prevailing idea is, for far too long, we those of us who've been officers of the court for a long time have allowed these kinds of laws to exist and people to suffer these kinds of consequences. For example, there are many African people like myself who did not choose to be born poor, choose to be born in a single family home, choose to be born in a place where you only go to the poorest schools, and then get arrested for riding on the handlebar, because it wasn't just if you're light out. Sometimes children would get arrested for riding on the handlebars, like children used to do when I was a bicycle rider. But children my children's age would get stopped and arrested for riding on handlebars, just having fun. And so now didn't choose that, and now you have the situation where you can't get certain kinds of jobs, perhaps even can't get a college education if they caught you with a piece of marijuana on you, and stuff like that. And so now you gotta do what you gotta do, like this woman in this dreadful hypothetical Mr. Attorney Lirot presented. She's a woman in a bad situation she didn't choose, and now she's got to do what she's got to do. But that's been the situation for many African people, for a lot of African people, at least, maybe not most, but it's certainly a lot of African people in this country all the time. We just had to do what we had to do, but nobody ran to our defense and said, hey, judge, prosecutor, use your discretion and do it like this. As a matter of fact, I can recall when Hillsborough County was like the number one county in the world at direct filing juveniles, for juveniles, for being juveniles, doing stuff. And nobody came to the rescue. Oh, I was going to say, most of those juveniles were African people, and nobody came to our rescue. And now I understand abortion, women's rights, body, all that stuff has got everybody up in a tizzy. But the reality is, if people, specifically, white people, and women, and others, who care so much about what's going on now with this abortion stuff, cared enough about the least of us, or those of us who've been represented the least in this court system, had done something about this overstepping. When it happened to us, we probably wouldn't see this stuff happening to women who are vulnerable to such dire circumstances as well. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Mr.
But you're not done, because I want to ask you another thing. Life.
Yeah.
But Andrew Warren, you do understand that his administration is about reducing the amount of juveniles into the adult system. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Listen, you can ask Andrew, and he'll tell you, if he tells the truth, he'll tell you that I was instrumental in helping him win the first time. Myself and Connie Burton and a whole team of Africans were on the street.
I saw it.
Knocking
You're
doors,
right.
passing out.
I
I can tell you that we were instrumental in that process. I remember when Andrew came to tea in conversation, cried on my shoulder, because of his personal circumstances and some of mine in common. So yeah, we were instrumental in that process. So I know I know a little bit about who Andrew Warren is, and certainly about what he's done and his tenure.
Before, so I want to stay with you, Life, and you're looking mighty sharp this morning.
Thank you. Doing the best I can.
I wanted to ask you, because some people are asking about, and I want to share this. Okay, here we go. Tampa Mayor, and I'm sure Life has a lot to say about this, because we're going back. And Andrew Warren made what is it called? They're calling it presumption of non-prosecution. And presumption means it's presumed, but it's, again, not a blanket statement. He's saying, I'm not going to be, based on historically what happened with TPD, with the disproportionate amount of tickets being given to blacks riding their bikes because of traffic violations or not having the proper equipment. And let's not forget, Jane Castor said right before in 2018, she was about to announce that she was going to run for mayor. She said that it was wrong, that biking, black on bikes being stopped, that policy, that program was wrong, presumably to get the vote of the black community. She maintained from the inception of that in 2015, when the Tampa Bay Times did a whole coverage on that. She said, nope, there was nothing wrong with it. And then right before she's going to announce to be a mayor, oh, that was wrong. Andrew Warren, based on an understanding of the wrongness of that, actually has done something. There's a presumption of non-prosecution. Again, he's made clear that assistant state attorneys still have the discretion to look at a case, and if it merits prosecution, okay, that they can prosecute. But what he did was a good thing. He said, if you're going to stop a black person on a bike for an equipment violation, a traffic violation, and nothing else, and then it results in a crime of resisting an officer without violence, he's not going to prosecute those. He made that decision. I think that was a good policy based on what I just mentioned. Tampa Mayor Jane Castor says she will not direct TPD to arrest those who have had or seek abortion. So she's used the power of her office to say, as the mayor, the boss of the Tampa Police Department, I'm going to use my power to tell TPD, do not arrest persons who violate the 15-week ban restriction on abortions. So some people on social media have been asking, well, why doesn't she get suspended? Why is Andrew getting suspended and not her? Luke, can you, and I'm going to get back to you, Life, because I want you to speak to that, how she uses her office to protect persons that are going to violate this law, but not do the same for the continued stopping of black persons, arresting them for those types of violations. Luke, why can't she do that?
Well, my first observation is that in looking at the executive orders that have come from Governor DeSantis' office, I think he believes he could suspend a lunch lady that had different political opinions than he did. However, the Florida Constitution does have different levels of office. Now, the governor can act against an elected official in Andrew Warren's position. I do not think an elected mayor would fall within the list of elected officials that could be the subject of such an executive order.
So here's under Section 7, he was Andrew Warren as a county officer. Okay. It says here, by executive order stating the grounds and filed with the custodian of state records, the governor may suspend from office any state officer not subject to impeachment, any officer of the militia not in the active service of the United States, or any county officer for malfeasance, misfeasance, neglect of duty. That's the one that he used for Warren, and for incompetence. That's the other one that he used. That's under our state constitution, Article 4, Section 7. So under A is what he went ahead and was able to use to suspend Andrew Warren. Under C, see, so here it doesn't have the ability to do so with a municipal officer, which Jane is.
Right.
She would have to be indicted for a crime in order to be suspended. So it's not like she's bold. That's not like she's bold like Jane Castor. Oh, I'm going to take on the big bad governor. No, she's not that bold. She did it because she can do it in order to ignite her base. Oh, look, she's not taking any risk, folks. She's not being bold. But the interesting thing is when she made that political chess move, it's interesting that she's not doing the same on behalf of Africans, like Life said. They're not going to, like, go ahead and speak about this. Weigh in on this.
Yeah, so just to put Jane Castor in perspective, Jane Castor is, I'm 47 years old. I was born and raised in Tampa, born January 1st, 1975. At St. Joseph's Women's Hospital. So like I was one of the first, in the 47 years I've been here in Tampa. So and I have a long memory. I can remember my earliest memory goes back to when I was perhaps 2 years old, I think too. And my point though in saying all that is, as far as I can remember, Jane Castor, Harry Lee Cole notwithstanding, is the worst thing that's ever happened to African people in Tampa since I've been alive. And I'll say more about why. Jane Castor has a split tongue. For example, just a few months ago, there was this gun buyback, right? The gun buyback took place in Sulphur Springs over by the where the dog track, the dog track thing used to be. I don't know, it might still be there, but it used to be there. Like Sly in Nebraska and some other place in the African community. And I don't know how much we can trust the St. Pete Times, but the St. Pete Times quoted Jane Castor as saying that, so they got 1,000 guns off the streets, based on that gun buyback. They bought back 1,000 guns for $100 a piece. Very, very low, very much below the market price of any kind of gun. I don't know a gun you can get for $100. So they bought these 1,000 guns back, and Jane Castor's quoted as saying, it's good to get these guns off the street. But then this is the same mayor that allows this today. It's going on right now today. There's a Tampa gun show where there's 10,000 guns or more, tens of thousands of guns at the fairgrounds right now. That's going to end up on the street. They're not all going to the police department, right? And so she's just a split face, split tongue talker. Talking about when the George Floyd thing happened, right? There's another quote in the mainstream media where Jane Castor says a knee on the neck is never appropriate. But there's also a deposition in the Arthur Green Jr. case where the cops killed Arthur Green Jr.
Same thing.
That said, yeah, they did the same thing to him. It said they were trained to do it while Jane Castor was the chief. So, you can't trust anything. Anybody who trusts anything Jane Castor has to say is some kind of spectacular fool. Jane Castor split tongue. And so that's my assessment with Jane Castor. Everything about backing, and I can prove it. It's not just because I say
For
it.
real.
I can prove it. I'm one of those type of dudes that I keep stuff. I take pictures. I got newspaper articles. I can point it to you whenever you are ready.
Live. She hasn't apologized to the family of Arthur Green to say I'm sorry because like you said, the duplicity.
And she never will. But my whole point is Jane Castor is a monster, certainly a threat to the African community. And my major reason for being on this program, and I don't know if I expressed my deep and profound appreciation for the invitation to be here, but I do really appreciate being here. My major reason for being here is to encourage everybody, African people and white people to work together for a better society for all of us. And so don't get mad when I say that colonizers do stuff to colonize people, because that's the reality. Andrew, there's a question I think on the table about why Jane Castor is treated some kind of way, and I know we went through the statutes and what, but this is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship, a rule without regard for law. DeSantis is proof of that pudding. He does whatever he wants to do without regard for law. So this is a dictatorship. But the reality is, the reason why Jane Castor gets treated one way and Andrew gets treated another is because Andrew, kind of is on the fence, and maybe sometimes over the fence and going against the status quo, while Jane Castor is all about maintaining the status quo and keeping power and control in the hands of the colonizers and making sure colonized people know their place.
Gretchen, thank you, Gretchen Meckler, greetings. Thank you for tuning in, Gretchen. Okay, so I'm gonna bring on Joshua Montero, and I want to tie it in to you. What you just said, Life, because you said, can the St. Pete Times be trusted?
I
So
said I
this,
don't know if they can be. I didn't say they
I
can't be. I
know.
said I don't.
I no,
Yeah,
I think I
I
posed
ain't
it as
trying
a
to get no
question.
defamation. No, I ain't trying to get no
What did I
defamation.
just say? Did I say? Did I
You
say?
said I said they can't be trusted. I said I don't know. I said if they can.
If I,
'Cause I'm
well,
not sure.
I
Because they
misspoke.
misquoted me before. But if we can
No,
trust
no.
them,
So
yeah,
I
okay.
apologize if I. That's what came out of my mouth. What I meant was it was a question. It was a question. You posed it as a question, whether they can be trusted. Um,
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and pose that question. Can they be trusted? Because Josh Montero, he's gonna be running for Hillsborough County Public Defender. Joshua, can you hear me? You're muted. You're muted.
I can't hear you. I just want to mute. There was
Okay,
some cars
so
coming
he's
by.
going to
I'm
be running, and
outside
the
enjoying
local community
conversation.
knows that, and the legal community knows that, and they just ran a piece, naming the successor apparent. We're not in a monarchy. This is a representative republic. I did email the reporters that put out the article this past week. The chief operating officer of the Hillsborough County Public Defender is running. But again, the electors, the voters will decide whether the successor will be to the current incumbent who's been there for over 30 years, or will be by the time that the next person starts to serve. Joshua Montero, good day. I know that you're at Tea and Conversation. Thank you for tuning in. You've been hearing everything that has been we've been discussing. Would you like to weigh in that? And I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the community. You are seeking to be Hillsborough County's next public defender for the 2024 cycle.
Yes, ma'am. And brother Life, I'm going to use that spectacular fool at my next closing. If you think my client is guilty, you're a spectacular fool. I love it. I wanted to weigh in on one part of it, Haiti, and that's the brother Life hit it too. Is this a dictatorship? Whoa, where'd I go?
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Go. Pick it back up. Joshua.
Got it?
Yeah.
So, as you know, I was in the military for the past 29 years. I recently retired from the military. And part of me being in the military, I deployed. I deployed with a 25-man group of Bradley fighting vehicles. We went right into the heart of Iraq when Saddam Hussein was the dictator in charge. And that's significant because now as I look at events that's going on in our country, you look at the Capitol riots, you look at the attack on women's rights, you look at what DeSantis has recently done, and you see that it's turning into the very countries that we fought against. We fought to establish democracy in Iraq. We fought to establish democracy in Afghanistan. We fought to protect the Constitution here in the United States. And you have people subverting that. And that's scary to me, and it's sad because we've lost a lot of lives to protect those constitutional fundamental rights. You can't just circumvent a constitutionally elected person by taking him out of office because you don't like what he has to say. He has the right of free speech. I fought for that right for free speech. If you don't like what he has to say, you don't like the job that he's doing, then elect him out, because he was elected by the county of Hillsborough twice. If they didn't like what he was doing, they wouldn't have elected him. So that's what the part that bothers me in this whole process is the fact that you're using the Florida Constitution to subvert the United States Constitution, which all of us believe in, and me, myself, and plenty of my comrades have fought for and lost their lives for.
Okay. So hold on a second. I'm gonna go ahead. Thank you for that. And what I just wanted to clarify, please let me in. Life, you are in. So you're still on the screen. You're muted. But I wanted to clarify as to the Tampa Bay Times. I wrote an email to Sue Carlton because the headline read that the incumbent endorses so and so to be her successor. Okay. And I said, listen, there are two other persons locally. The legal community knows, even the incumbent of the Hillsborough County Public Defender's Office and the person that she's endorsing to succeed her, they know that Josh Montero is running. They know that another individual, Lisa McLean, in the community is running. And so I asked Sue Carlton, why was that left out? Through diligence in researching or in inquiry, the incumbent of Hillsborough County, Julian Holt, could have told her, look, Joshua Montero has publicly announced that he's running. Lisa McLean has announced that she will be running. That could have been made known in the article that just came out, but it was just highlighting the person that Julian Holt wants to endorse to succeed her. Sue Carlton emailed me back and said, as soon as they officially file, then we'll do something. Well, guess what? There is no journalistic rule, election rule, that would prohibit a major publication to say, hey, voters, the sooner the voters know about who is intending to run that very important office, the more time they have to vet everybody. And so there's no journalistic rule that would prohibit that outlet from saying, hey, by the way, Joshua Montero, Lisa McLean, they've publicly announced that they're going to be seeking to run in that office, despite the fact that they've not officially filed. There's no requirement that a newspaper can't name other persons. In fact, Sue Carlton wrote an article posing the question, is Jane Castor going to run for mayor, when Jane Castor hadn't announced publicly that she was doing so or filed. And yet Sue Carlton wrote an article asking that question. So media bias, I believe that's media bias, but whatever. Okay,
But
so
Haiti,
yeah.
for me, I'm out in the community. I'm always been out in the community. So if the community knows who I am and the community knows what I'm doing, I'm okay with it. If the Times puts out their article and that's the rule they want to put out, is that they want to wait until I file, fair enough. So when I file, hopefully they do a true piece on myself, and hopefully they do a true piece on Lisa McLean, so that everybody gets to know who we are as candidates. But I'll continue doing what I'm doing out here in the community, and as long as the community is behind me, I'm fully confident that I'm going to make it in this race.
Let's just make it clear. I believe when I get that response from Tampa Bay Times, my opinion is, my speculation, my perception is it's biased in favor of one particular candidate. There's no rule. I have been putting this out on my social media, okay? I have been putting it out so that the public knows everyone that's intending on running for that office. Why? I have a legal email list of over 200 attorneys, and I keep them apprised of things that are going on so that they're in the know. And I get feedback all the time. Haiti, if you wouldn't have sent that to me, I wouldn't have known. The person that the Hillsborough County Public Defender incumbent wishes to anoint as her successor, I believe wanted to do a secret kind of campaign on the down low so that to not draw opposition. And so I think that that's the strategy that they were employing. 2 years out, we're 2 years out. People are asking, why has he filed so early? Well, because I began to make noises about other candidates or future once they officially file, but they've expressed their intention to run, and I wanted people to know so that everyone doesn't give an early commitment. That's part of the strategy of running a silent behind the scenes campaign. And he was doing so when he hadn't officially filed. He was going around trying to get commitments so that then people feel later bad when they know who also is running. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't give you a commitment. And then the endorsements. I want you to speak on this. And Life, if you're still there, come on. What do you have to say, Joshua Montero, about the fact, and I want to tie this in, because as Luke Lirot stated early on, there was one sheriff among many next to DeSantis, and one of them was Chad Chronister, saying that Andrew Warren, for a long time, there's been frustration at the apparent show of empathy towards criminals. Empathy, like, let's review claims of innocence to see if we accidentally or through an error wrongfully convicted someone, and then they found somebody who served 37 years. So that empathy is a good thing. But in any event, Chad Chronister was part of the effort to have Andrew Warren removed, and yet that perspective runs counter, I believe, to someone who is running to be public defender, because public defenders have to have empathy for not only the criminally accused, but even those who ultimately are found to be guilty. You have to mitigate at sentencing. And you know, you look at a human being, do they have mental health issues? That's been a thing where the stakeholders have gotten together, including Chad, to advance, to help. So I want you to tell me, what are your thoughts as to Brancato, the candidate Brancato, who is endorsed by the Julian Holt, has received the endorsement of Chad Chronister. Can you comment on that, Josh?
Haiti, I'll comment on it like this. I became a public defender because I believed in that office, and it was part of my continued service as a soldier. I wanted to continue to serve the community. Now, one of the perceptions that's hard to get over as a public defender is the fact that you're working with the state or that you're working with the sheriff, right? But when you have a prosecutor who is willing to actually show that empathy, that makes our jobs easier, right? And so if he gets removed, and the sheriff is saying, the governor is saying, look, we don't like that this man is showing empathy towards the community. What's wrong with that, right? Why would the sheriff be so pissed off that Andrew Warren is showing empathy towards people of the community? It tells you what's the problem here. What are we doing? Are we really here to seek justice, or are we just worried about prosecuting and getting people pleased and putting them in the prison? And as a public defender, at heart, no matter what I'm doing as a private attorney, that's what I'm always concerned about. Even as a private attorney, exactly what you said. What made this person get here today? We don't just go out there and commit crimes. There are some really wretched people in this world, but most of the people that we see as a public defender, something went wrong in their lives. And so you need to be able to look at that and say, I don't need to prosecute this person because there's a mental health reason. He's a vet. Something happened with PTSD. And you know, and I'll give big ups to Gretchen. I was there when Gretchen was there. I was a little baby attorney when Gretchen was there, but I learned a lot from her. And she was one of those people that I respected as an attorney, because you could see through her motion practice, through how she handled her clients, that she had that empathy. She truly cared about the clients that she had there in the office, and it rang true, and we always saw it. And that's what I see myself as somebody who cares about those clients, cares about the community, and wants best. And if you are worried about a person at whatever office that's doing that, the problem is in you. The problem is, especially when it comes to DeSantis, if you want to get into it, he's not worried about Florida. He's worried about a bigger platform because he wants to be the next Trump.
Okay, so this is what I will say. In 2020, the Hillsborough County Commission, they declared racism a public health issue. That's what they said. 2 years have passed. I don't see that they've done anything. Let's ask Kimberly Overman, who was at a forum not too long ago. You were there, Joshua. I appeared online. She boasted that as her contribution, but yet 2 years have passed. Kimberly Overman, we're going to have to ask her about that, to come on to say, what has she done after it people are going to question whether it's pandering. Here's the other thing, and I'm going to let Gretchen Cawthorn comment on this. A couple of months ago, Mary O'Connor stood at a presser in response to gun violence, had a bunch of people around her. 2 persons away was Julian Holt. She was there next to her. Mary O'Connor invited the public to call in tips to anybody that was standing there, including the public defender. I asked the public defender whether I thought that certainly can't be that the public defender is going to field calls, tips of crimes and work in conjunction with the police, because those 2 offices are adversarial in nature. And the public defender, Holt, has not wished to answer that question to the community. We had a broadcast. Gretchen was part of that broadcast. You had something to say. In fact, you said, you know what, Haiti, give her some time. She's probably eventually going to answer that question. And she hasn't. And so what happens is that this past week, somebody called me and I said, who was represented by the public defender. And I said, on an issue that they wanted post-sentencing to address. And I said, look, go back to your public defender. And that person sadly said, I don't want a public pretender. I got that as almost 7 years serving the public as a public defender. Every now and again, I got that from clients. And so when you talk about the commission, the county commission said that racism is a public health issue. What do you think black and brown people think when you have an incumbent public defender who doesn't want to answer, who's standing next to Chief Mary O'Connor, and some activists in the communities are asking her after a presser on TV, hey, wait, Mary O'Connor said that the public could call in tips to everyone, including you. That certainly, can you make a correction on that? Can you answer that? That can't be. What do you think that does to the anxiety level, depression level of black and brown people who are poor and need the services of the public defender, coming into knowledge that, you know, are you all together? Do you work adversarially? Do you work together? And you don't answer that. But here's what we have now again to compound that issue. We have the incumbent, Julian Holt of Hillsborough County, the public defender's office, her successor, who she's anointing to come after her. Who do we have endorsing him? The second in the line of endorsements, Chad Cronister, Hillsborough County Sheriff, who has a problem with empathy being shown to criminally accused. So what do you say about that, Gretchen?
Well, I'm shocked that Rocky put that on his website and that he accepted the endorsement. I'm just like, wow. I cannot imagine, you know, I practice criminal defense. If Cronister came out and said, I really like Gretchen, I would be like, no. Because we fight against the injustices that the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department inflicts on our community. I can't believe that Rocky would allow Cronister to endorse him and put it on his website. But Haiti, really, and something Life said earlier struck me, is that it's this power in Tampa and in Hillsborough County. You know, Julie Holt's partner worked, at least when I was a public defender, I don't know if they're still at the department, but worked at Tampa Police Department. Cronister is married into the DiBartolo family. You know, Castor's partner is a lobbyist. So it's all of these powerful people who work together and are all interconnected to each other. And it's at the detriment of our most vulnerable in our community. And again, like the Biking While Black, those 5 years that program took place, only one person was ever cited on Bayshore. And guess what? It was a black man. So it's,
Right.
You know, the policies in Tampa are to keep a certain power structure.
Right.
And I don't know that we have the ability to change that just because they are so powerful. You were mentioning the Tampa Bay Times. Their former head of their political department is now the communications director for Jane Castor, Adam Smith. And he is well known for calling reporters and screaming at them for writing anything detrimental about Jane Castor. So there's definitely a power structure. And unfortunately, primaries, we had 25% turnout in Hillsborough County. People are not voting. They're not paying attention. And that's why we are where we're at. And we're not going to get change unless people start paying attention to what's going on.
Okay, and so look, we have Josh Montero. Josh, again, before we wrap up, because we've been going on for an hour, I'm going to add Life to the stream. Welcome back, Life. Joshua Montero is certainly not someone who's not going to take into consideration the values, the principles that should be the undergird for these important offices, including the public defender. This is a man that went and served our country in the U.S. Army, Joshua Montero, for 29 years in active duty too, not just non-active, active duty. He was the leader of a platoon. Okay. And now he is wanting to, at a significant financial cost, okay, because he's worked in the private sector. He's making some dinero. And like Life said beautifully, I respect Life so much. This man I'm going to bring him on just to tell his story. But He's been through some stuff, man, in his life. He has been through some stuff. And what did he do? Like the proverbial taking lemons and making lemonades. He went to law school. And he says his primary motivator wasn't to make money, but to make a change. I respect you, sir. I honor you, sir. Okay? And you know what? Sometimes what I do in my involvement as an activist, sometimes that's at a financial cost to me too, to bring information. The community, like we're seeing these things where our country's polarized, it's divided. We're in trouble. It seems like sometimes, and that's the blue team says that, the members of the red team says that we're in some situation. But this man, he served, and now he wants to serve those that are the least of amongst us, the poor. He wants to carry that torch, and he wants to do so honorably. He understands. He just put out a statement on Andrew Warren's suspension, and he says, and he understands that the stakeholders, the state attorney, sheriff, public defender, collaboratively, transparently, for the community to know, listen, folks, we're not sacrificing our adversarial nature and respective roles, but we do have to sit all at the table and come to a not a compromise, but just work together where none of our respective roles are sacrificed or compromised for the greater good. He understands that, but he also understands and stands firm. There can be no appearance of a conflict of interest. There could be no appearance of that. The community needs to know the PD's office will not be in bed in cahoots, because some people have that perception.
Hey, let me jump in because I want to let Josh have the last word. I just want to say, when we're talking about the guy, Chad Chronister, he's got the same kind of split tongue as Jane Castor. He cannot be trusted. There's an article in which Chronister says that, there's never a place, he said violence is never acceptable. But he's the sheriff of Hillsborough County, and they got more guns, more tanks, more flash and bang grenades, and the rest of it than anybody else. You know what I mean? So, on the one hand, violence is not the answer. I mean, violence is never the answer, but he the most violent person in the county, So I mean, this guy, whatever he says is counterfeit. I just want to say that, and I don't want to say anything else. I'm gonna go in this TN conversation. I'm gonna still listen because I want to hear the wonderful words Josh has to say. But I really appreciate you laying it out like you did. Laying out the issues the way you did, and you're right, Josh. Josh is the best representative for the public in the public defender's office, and he should get that. He should get that seat. And he's got my vote, and I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure he gets elected. All right.
Thank you, Life. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Same, Haiti. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Josh. Final word before you step back into TN conversation yourself.
Of course, I just want to thank Life. I can't enough gratitude for a man like Life. I know his story, and I hope you do get to have him on the show to tell his story, because it's an absolutely incredible story. It's a story of somebody who really went through the system and is risen out of it. But yeah, Haiti, one of my biggest things when I was a public defender was that word, public pretender. I hated it. It's not fair. You always ask, are you a real lawyer? I want to go get a real private attorney. And I actually spend most of my time in private practice saying, hey, who is your public defender? Because before you hire me, I want you to know that a lot of those public defenders there are the ones that taught me everything I know today, right? And so therefore, I'm not going to take your case if I don't feel like I can do better than that public defender there. But to that end, that office to me is special. And I've seen some great attorneys who come to that office, Gretchen included, who have gotten annoyed with the process there, with some of the leadership styles there, with how large that caseload is. They're not really getting the support that they need. And why does that matter to the community, right? The community is like, well, we're all lawyers. Because if you have lawyers there that are frustrated, who have high caseloads, who are having to be trained over and over again because you have a high turnover rate, then the community is not getting an effective product. Lawyers themselves, and we can all say it, mental health is one of the biggest issues in our community, because we go through a lot of stress. And it's helpful to have an environment where it's not adding on to the stress, where you're not under the thumb, where you're not afraid to practice law, and that's going to serve the community better. And that's what I want to do. I love that office, and I want to be able to lead that office because I think that 29 years of leadership that I have is perfect to show them how to lead with respect and not fear.
And when you were in the public defender's office, you went through the misdemeanor divisions and the felony divisions, yes?
So if you know anything about the public defender's office, you actually start an intake where all you're doing is dealing with people who are coming in to first appearance. Then
Yep.
you move on that you go to the mental health, where you're with Joe Cruz, wonderful man, that you spend like a month out at Grace Point helping those individuals. Then you move to juvenile, then you move to misdemeanor, and then eventually you end up with felony. So I've gone through all those rungs, and fortunately for me as well, I got to go over to Pasco, just like you did, Haiti, in the 6th, and see how things are ran differently there. There's a whole different environment there where the attorneys are allowed to actually practice law and are treated as adults as they should. So having both of those regiments underneath me, I think I'm best to be able to serve this office and see things from a different view, and especially with the military background that I have.
And not only that, but now you're part of you work for a private firm, and so you're getting experience on the business administration aspect.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it's invaluable when you see how private attorneys do business. It's still, taking care of the client, but now you also have to take in all this, the marketing and the making sure you're keeping people happy and doing all of that and keeping your attorneys happy as well, because you have a business that's running. And if your business starts to go away, it's not like the public defender's office. You don't have an unlimited supply of people coming in. You got to keep the people there happy.
All right, thank you. Thank you for popping on here and addressing the public. I wanted to especially do so today because I was disappointed with the Tampa Bay Times. I'm a subscriber to the Tampa Bay Times, and so it disappointed me that in their article, featuring the incumbent Julian Holt's pick, they left out, which had they asked questions, or maybe they did know. I don't know. I just think that to not name the other persons that have publicly announced was disappointing to me, and it just drops my confidence level as a reader, subscriber to that outlet, as to whether I'm getting all the necessary information timely, especially when it deals with coming elections. Okay, have a great day, Joshua.
You too.
And
Haiti, thank you.
You're very welcome. Luke, any last words? We ran over an hour. This was
All
a
right.
very interesting topic, of course, and a lot of conversation that I didn't anticipate was gonna occur.
Hey, listen, I just can't be more grateful for our exercise of the First Amendment here today. I appreciate everything you do. Getting the word out and making sure people understand these issues is incredibly important. And I think you deserve some real congratulations for all the hard work that you've done to get the message out and keep people informed as well as you have. And I'm very grateful for having the opportunity to be on here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luke, so much. I'm honored that you would come on with me and because I appreciate you and respect you very much.
My pleasure.
Gretchen, any last words? And I'm going to bid everyone goodbye. Have an enjoyable Saturday. And Gretchen, any last things that you want to say before I sign off?
No, just people pay attention to what's going on and don't just read one source. Don't just rely on the Tampa Bay Times. Also read Creative Loafing. Get out there, pay attention to what's going on in Tampa.
All right. Haiti Oropesa with Luke Lirot, Attorney Luke Lirot, Attorney Gretchen Cothran. Thank you, Attorney Joshua Montero. Be on the lookout for him. He is going to be running for Hillsborough County Public Defender's Office in the 2024 election. Lisa McLean is as well. And thanks to Life Malcolm, also Attorney Life Malcolm, for participating in our discussion. Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge. Until next